All right, hey everybody. The purpose of this video is just to cover question 5 on quiz 9, which I think a lot of people ended up not quite understanding. And so I figured a video explanation would be a little bit easier than like a written explanation and like the quiz solutions. And so if you kind of remember, question 5 says a friend looks at the summary output and says there really isn't any evidence for a difference in price between diamonds with color E and diamonds with color D, blah, 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 blah. And so to really make that interpretation, they're looking at this output, looking at this row with color E, seeing that this p-value is large, and then making this claim that since that p-value is large, then that must mean that there's no evidence for kind of a difference in price between color E diamonds and the reference group, which is color D diamonds. And so I've thrown together just like a fake data set to kind of show why this interpretation isn't correct. And so you could kind of ignore the simulation code. To make things simpler, I got rid of color F diamonds and I got rid of depth. And so the analogous interpretation in this data set would just be to say, okay, since this p-value for color E is large, there's no evidence that kind of on average the price for diamonds that are color E is different than price for diamonds that are color D. So why that interpretation is just not necessarily correct is a lot more clear if you kind of look at a graph. And so made a graph of this. And so we can't just say that on average price for color E diamonds, there's no evidence that it's different than price for color D diamonds, because we could see in this graph that at least for like large levels of carat, there seems to be a huge difference in price between the two colors. What the correct interpretation for this should be is that there's no evidence for a difference in average price when carat is 0. And so for these non-parallel lines models, as we can see from the graph, that when carat is 0 part is pretty critical, because there doesn't look like there's evidence of a difference when carat is 0, but we don't just want to say there's no evidence for a difference in price between the two colors, because clearly for some higher levels of carat, there is a pretty big difference in price. And so I thought this example would hopefully make that a little bit more clear, that when we have these non-parallel lines models, we have to be a little bit careful about interpreting this, the estimate for the indicator variable as well as the p-value. And we have to be careful in that we're only really thinking about that when carat is equal to 0. Okay, so that was, last part was a little stumbly, but I'm not remaking this video a 5th time. So hopefully that makes sense, but definitely let me know if you have any questions, and also definitely ignore this code. We don't really talk about coding that much, so just kind of focus on the graph and the output of the model.